The first thing she remembered was the cold. Not the simple bite of air, but the kind of deep, marrow-chilling cold that made her feel like she had been dropped into the void itself. When her eyes opened, light stabbed at her, white and sharp, and above her stretched a ceiling of shifting metal panels. Each plate pulsed faintly with an inner glow, as though the room itself was alive. She tried to lift her hands, but found them clamped to the table beneath her. The surface was slick, almost wet, though she knew it was only the metal's strange polish that made it feel so. Her name was Lyra. She had whispered it to herself when the transport vessel was attacked, when the alien boarding party had dragged her through smoke and chaos. She had repeated it in the hours, or was it days, of transit to this place. It was a tether, a reminder that she was still herself, still human. Now strapped down in a chamber that hummed with a low mechanical vibration, even her name felt fragile, as if it could slip away with the next breath. Shapes moved in the periphery of her vision. At first she thought they were shadows, but then one leaned into the light. Its form was humanoid in the loosest sense, tall limbs elongated, skin patterned with glistening ridges that looked like carved stone and slick cartilage at once. Its eyes were lidless, circular pools of liquid amber. The thing bent close, studying her like a specimen under glass. "You are aware," it said in a voice that was not spoken but pressed directly into her mind. The sound left a trace of static behind her eyes. "This is good." Others joined it. 3, 4, maybe more. They did not bother with introductions. Their presence filled the air with a weight heavier than gravity. A set of instruments descended from above. Needles tipped with faint blue sparks, bands of silver coils that writhed like snakes, and blades so thin they seemed transparent. Lyra's pulse quickened. "What do you want?" Her voice cracked, thin in the vast chamber. The nearest alien tilted its head, fascinated by the sound. "Your endurance, your weakness, your threshold of breakage." One of the devices descended, brushing against her arm. It felt icy at first, then seared like a brand. Lyra clenched her teeth, refusing to scream. Another band tightened around her chest, forcing her lungs to labor for air. Pain blossomed in precise bursts, controlled, clinical, as though each wave of suffering were being measured and catalogued. Minutes bled into hours. Or perhaps it was only a few moments stretched thin by agony. The aliens did not speak often, but when they did it was always the same. Noting her responses, calculating thresholds. They seemed perplexed by her silence, her stubborn refusal to beg. "Why resist? Your species breaks easily," one of them remarked after her fingernails split against the restraints. Lyra swallowed hard, tasting iron in her mouth. "Because I'm not here for you to understand." The alien did not respond. Perhaps it did not comprehend defiance, or perhaps it simply did not care. The torture shifted then, becoming sharper. They sent jolts of energy through her veins, forcing muscles to seize. They implanted images into her mind, visions of Earth burning, of her family's faces twisted in terror, illusions crafted to erode her spirit. She bit her tongue until she tasted blood, anchoring herself to pain that was real, not fabricated. She told herself stories in the silence between shocks. Of the first time she flew a shuttle, of the rainstorm in her hometown that left her soaked but laughing, of the way her mother's hands smelled faintly of engine oil. The memories were small shields, but they were hers, and they kept her from slipping completely into despair. The aliens grew restless. Their tools dug deeper, their voices colder. Lyra felt her body falter. Skin blistered, bones strained, breath came shallow. Somewhere in the haze of pain, she realized their patience had thinned. They no longer wanted to test her limits. They wanted to break them entirely. "Terminate the vessel," the leader ordered. A final surge tore through her body, brighter and hotter than anything before. Her vision narrowed to a tunnel of white fire. She felt ribs crack, organs fail, the slow retreat of life itself. Her last thought before the darkness claimed her was a sky, blue and endless, untouched by alien hands. Silence followed. The instruments retracted. One by one, the aliens withdrew, murmuring among themselves in their unspoken language. They spoke of failure, of wasted effort, of a subject that had given them little insight. Her body lay motionless on the cold table, eyes half-lidded, chest still. "Mark her as concluded," the leader said. It turned away, disinterested, its mind already moving to the next experiment. They left her there, discarded like a broken tool. The room dimmed, the hum of machinery lowering into a subdued rhythm. For a long time, there was nothing. No breath, no heartbeat, no spark of thought. Then faintly, the monitors flickered. A pulse of energy, brief but undeniable, shivered through the air. One of the instruments beeped a low warning tone before stabilizing again. Her fingers twitched. It was so slight that none of the watchers outside the chamber noticed. Her chest remained still, but beneath the surface something stirred. Something neither she nor her captors could yet comprehend. 37 minutes after her death, the silence broke. At first there was only a spark, a flicker that seemed more like the twitch of a nerve than the return of life. The alien monitors logged it as an error, a brief malfunction in their readings, but the spark spread. A current rolled through the girl's chest, subtle yet steady, as if the machinery of her body had found a hidden ignition. 37 minutes after she had been declared lifeless, her lungs expanded with a thin, rattling breath. The monitors chimed in a sequence the observers had never heard before, their symbols flaring red against the walls. Lyra's eyes snapped open. They were the same deep brown, yet something lingered within them that had not been there before, an unnatural glow, faint as embers buried in ash. She lay motionless, as if gathering herself from beyond a precipice, then flexed her fingers against the restraints. Metal groaned, and to her astonishment, the bands bent beneath her grip. The aliens returned swiftly, their steps deliberate, their faces unreadable. They surrounded the table, voices pressing into her mind with a tangle of alarm and fascination. Impossible. The vessel expired. Regenerative cycle not recorded. Explain. Lyra coughed, the sound raw, but her lips twisted into something near a smile. Explain it yourselves. They restrained her again, though this time with reinforced bindings and more cautious movements. Needles pierced her skin, drawing data. Sensors pulsed against her temples, flooding her skull with intrusive pressure. She braced herself for agony like before, but the pain struck differently now. Where once it consumed her, it now burned briefly, then faded as though absorbed. Every lash of their machine seemed to rebound, leaving her clearer, stronger. Fear was not an expression the aliens wore often, but it seeped through their collective murmur. The organism is adapting. Pain thresholds are irrelevant. Structural resilience exceeds predictions. She could feel it too. Her blood no longer raced with terror, but with a strange vitality. Her senses sharpened. The rhythm of the machines around her, the low hum of energy flowing in their walls. Even the faint stirrings of the aliens' thoughts pressed against her mind. Their arrogance, their calculations, their confusion. They resonated in her like distant echoes. They attempted to sedate her. A fluid burned into her veins, designed to paralyze, to smother consciousness. For a moment, the world dimmed. Her eyelids sank, her body slackened. Then, with a surge she could not explain, she forced herself awake, every muscle rejecting the chemical chains. The restraints creaked again, fractures spiderwebbing across the alloy. "You will submit," one of them ordered, its mental voice shrill with authority. "Not anymore," she whispered. With a final heave, the restraints shattered. The clang echoed across the chamber. She rose to her feet, swaying at first, but soon steady, her limbs thrumming with borrowed strength. The aliens stepped back, their composure shaken. Their weapons unfolded from their arms, sleek constructs of bone and metal. Bolts of searing energy shot toward her. She flinched, expecting flesh to sear and bones to crack. Instead, pain flared and dissolved almost instantly. Wounds sealing in moments, smoke rising from skin that healed as quickly as it was harmed. She staggered, but did not fall. The realization struck her harder than the weapons. She could not die so easily now. Something primal unfurled inside her, not rage exactly, but the unshakable certainty of survival. She lunged at the nearest alien. Her hand closed around its throat, fingers sinking into ridged flesh. With a strength she had never possessed before, she snapped its neck. The body collapsed, eyes dimming, and silence gripped the others. She stared at her bloodied hands, chest heaving. She should have recoiled, should have collapsed from horror. Instead, a grim calm washed over her. She was alive, and more than alive, something beyond human endurance had taken root in her. The others attacked in unison. Their strikes were faster, sharper, but she moved with instinct she could not explain. Each motion was precise, as though her body remembered a dance she had never learned. She dodged, struck, tore through armor that once seemed impenetrable. When the last one fell, its body crushed against the wall. The chamber fell silent except for her breathing. Lyra stood among the corpses, trembling not from weakness, but from the enormity of what had happened. She had died. She had returned. She had killed creatures that moments ago had seemed invincible. Yet the questions pressed harder than the victory. What was she now? Human, yes, but changed in ways she could not yet define. Her eyes caught the reflection of her face in a metallic surface. The features were her own, pale skin, dark hair matted with sweat, but the faint glow in her irises made her recoil. She leaned closer, half afraid the image would reveal someone else entirely. She whispered her name again, softly, as if daring the reflection to deny it. Lyra! The reflection did not waver. The chamber's alarms finally screamed to life. Red light washed across the walls, bathing the bodies of the fallen aliens in a ghastly glow. A voice, deeper and colder than the rest, filled the room, contained the anomaly. Secure at all costs. She knew they would come for her again. Stronger ones, perhaps more prepared. But she also knew something else now, something vital. She was no longer their subject. She had been broken, had been discarded, and had risen from death. Whatever they had done to her, whatever she had become, it was beyond their control. Her gaze fell upon the door at the far end of the chamber. Beyond it lay more of them, more answers and more danger. Her chest tightened, not with fear, but with a strange exhilaration of resolve. She was not finished. With one last look at the ruins of her restraints, she stepped forward into the crimson light, ready to face what waited beyond. The corridor beyond the chamber stretched like a throat of steel and shadow, pulsing faintly with veins of light that snaked along the walls. Lyra moved carefully at first, her bare feet silent against the floor, but every step steadied her further. The bodies she had left behind were not the end. They were a beginning. She felt it in her chest, the rhythm of a heart that had stopped and restarted, stronger, steadier, no longer bound by its old limits. The alarm still shrieked, vibrating in her skull. Doors hissed open ahead of her, spilling alien figures into the hall. These were not the same scientists who had watched her suffer. They were soldiers. Armor clung to their elongated forms. Bone-like plates fused with glimmering alloys. They moved with precision, weapons raised in unison, their amber eyes fixed on her. Containment priority, one of them projected, its mental tone clipped and sharp. Lyra's pulse quickened. Her body, though tense, no longer trembled. She could sense their intent like a pressure in the air, the certainty of superiority, the expectation of her collapse. For a fleeting instant, she almost laughed. They still thought she was prey. The first bolt of energy sizzled past her shoulder, searing the wall. The second struck her chest, driving her back a step, but the pain evaporated before it rooted. Flesh knitted, bone realigned, and she surged forward. Her hand found the barrel of one weapon. With a twist, it snapped. She struck the soldier with the broken fragment, piercing its throat. The others attacked, but she flowed between them, her movements guided not by thought, but by something deeper, a rhythm written into her blood. When the last of them fell, the corridor was slick with their ichor, and she stood at its center, panting but unbroken. Her arms trembled, not from weakness, but from the realization of what she had done. Again, she had killed, and it had felt less like murder than survival, an act as natural as breathing. She pressed a hand to the wall, steadying herself. The structure vibrated faintly beneath her palm, a hum of energy coursing through it. Her senses stretched further, as if the pulse of the ship itself whispered to her. Images flickered in her mind, maps, schematics, fragments of alien thought. She jerked back, startled. She was reading the place, absorbing knowledge that was never hers. The thought chilled her, yet it burned with utility. "They made me into this," she muttered, voice low, rasping. The words were not comfort, but an anchor. Whatever had been awakened in her, it was no accident. The torture, the experiments, the death, they had wanted to break her. Instead, they had changed her. She pressed on, navigating without hesitation, guided by instincts that should not exist. Doors parted before her, revealing chambers filled with devices and records. In one room, she glimpsed stasis pods lining the walls, each one containing a figure like her, human, unmoving, their forms suspended in pale light. She approached, heart clenching. Their faces were slack, trapped in a sleep that did not look peaceful. One of the consoles blinked alive as she neared. Words formed in the alien script, but her mind twisted them into meaning. Subject class: Homo sapiens. Evaluation: limited resilience. Projected utility: expendable. Recommendation: subspecies extinction. Her stomach nodded. So that was the truth. They were not studying for curiosity's sake. They were preparing for conquest, dissecting humanity to measure its weaknesses, cataloging its destruction in advance. And she, Lyra, was meant to be one of their disposable trials. Instead, she had become something else, an error, an anomaly. Her reflection stared back at her in the pod's surface. This time she did not look away. She saw the faint light in her eyes, the marks on her skin where weapons had failed to scar her, the tension in her jaw that no longer trembled. She wondered if her mother would recognize her now, if her friends would call her human still. A noise behind her snapped her back. More soldiers, but fewer this time. They did not advance immediately. Their eyes lingered on the bodies in the corridor behind her, then shifted to her stance, her glowing gaze. She caught a flicker of thought from them, hesitation. She stepped forward, voice steady. "You don't understand what you've done." One of them raised its weapon anyway, but she moved faster. The fight was brutal, short, and decisive. When it ended, she stood over the remains, blood slick on her hands and arms. Yet even as the adrenaline ebbed, her mind churned. It wasn't enough to kill them, not if more would come. Not if their empire stretched beyond this place. She turned back to the pods. Each human inside represented not just a life, but a possibility, a reminder of what was at stake. She could not save them all now, but she could make their suffering mean something. She could strike at the core of the machine that had sought to unravel her kind. Resolve settled over her like armor. She no longer wondered what she had become. Whatever the answer, it was a weapon forged from her torment. And if the aliens had given her this power, she would return it to them with interest. She left the chamber, heading deeper into the facility. Behind her, the pods glowed softly, silent witnesses to her vow. Ahead, alarms blared louder, footsteps gathered, and the voice of authority echoed through the walls. All units converge. The anomaly must not leave containment. Lyra smiled, though it held no joy. She was no anomaly. She was the consequence of their cruelty, the proof of their failure to understand humanity. She would show them just how costly that failure could be. The facility trembled around her, a heartbeat of alarms and pounding footsteps echoing through its metallic veins. Lyra advanced deeper, guided not only by instinct, but by the strange awareness threading through her mind. Every corridor, every junction, every pulse of power in the walls sang to her. She knew where they gathered, where they armed themselves, where they feared she would go. And so she went there, step after deliberate step. A blast door sealed ahead, thick as a bunker wall. She placed her hand against its surface, feeling the thrum of energy woven into its frame. For a moment she concentrated, letting her senses stretch into the humming lattice. Something within her responded, a thread of alien knowledge that was not learned, but inherited in pain. Circuits flickered, locks unlatched, and the door split open with a hiss of surrender. On the other side waited an army. Rows of soldiers lined the chamber, their bone metal armor glistening beneath the harsh lights. At their center stood a taller figure, its presence more crushing than any she had yet faced. Its ridged form gleamed with ceremonial etchings, its amber eyes bright with authority. The moment it spoke, the chamber shivered. You should not exist. Its voice was a storm pressed into her skull. You are an aberration of failure. You are unfinished. Lyra's hands curled into fists. Her throat tightened, but her voice emerged clear. I was finished the moment you killed me. Everything since has been yours to regret. At the commander's signal, the soldiers advanced. Energy bolts tore across the chamber, filling the air with shrieks of heat and impact. Lyra moved through them, each strike burning but fading, her body mending faster than they could destroy it. She struck back with precision, her strength unnatural, her reflexes sharp. She tore weapons from their arms, crushed armor with her bare hands, and sent bodies scattering. Still, more surged forward. She felt their numbers pressing in, and for the first time she faltered. Their sheer volume threatened to smother her. Pain clawed across her nerves, her healing struggling to keep pace. Her breath hitched, vision narrowing. Yet through the haze, she glimpsed the commander watching from a distance, unmoving, assessing. It did not see her as a threat. It saw her as data, as an error to be corrected. The thought reignited her fury. She pushed harder, every strike fueled not only by survival, but by defiance. These creatures wanted humanity erased, dismissed as weak, disposable. They had turned her into proof of that claim, and in doing so, they had undone themselves. She broke their ranks, carving a path through the chamber, until she stood before the commander. It did not draw a weapon. Instead, its hand rose, finger splayed, and a wave of force crashed against her mind. She staggered, clutching her skull as alien power pressed into her thoughts, twisting, probing. Images filled her head, planets burning, fleets descending, humanity screaming in chains. She felt her identity peeling away, piece by piece, under the weight of its will. You are nothing, the commander thundered inside her. A fragment of meat wrapped in borrowed strength. Humanity is a mistake, and you are its last echo. Lyra's knees buckled. Darkness clawed at her, whispering surrender. But beneath the noise, a memory flickered. Her mother's hands, calloused and warm, guiding her when she was young. Her father's voice, steady in storms. The laughter of her crew before the attack. These fragments anchored her, tiny yet unbreakable. She clung to them, forcing the commander's storm to break against their stubborn weight. I am not your mistake, she gasped. I am your consequence. With a roar, she surged forward. The force shattered, and she collided with the commander. They crashed into the chamber's core, slamming against consoles that sparked and burned. Its strength was monstrous, claws raking her arms, but she matched it strike for strike. Their duel was not elegant, it was brutal, desperate, every blow shaking the chamber. Finally, with a surge of strength that felt like every ounce of agony given form, she drove her hand into its chest. The commander's eyes widened, light flaring before dimming. Its body collapsed, convulsed once, then stilled. Silence fell. The chamber's alarms faltered, flickering into quiet. The soldiers that remained hesitated, their composure shattered. Without their leader, their will fractured. One by one they retreated, vanishing into the corridors like shadows at dawn. Lyra remained kneeling over the fallen commander, chest heaving, her body smeared in blood that was not all her own. She rose slowly, surveying the wreckage. Consoles sparked around her, the walls trembling with strain. She could feel the facility's systems unraveling, as though the death of its master had sent a tremor through its spine. Somewhere deep below, reactors groaned. It would not hold much longer. She turned toward the exit, her body heavy but unbroken. Every step felt like a declaration. She had survived, she had resisted, and she had avenged. Yet, as she neared the doorway, she paused. A monitor flickered nearby, casting a reflection in fractured light. Her face stared back, still her own, yet marked by something greater, stranger. The glow in her eyes pulsed softly, steady as a heartbeat. Was she still Lyra? Still human? She did not know, but she did know this. She carried more than herself now. She carried proof that humanity could not be extinguished, that it could adapt, endure, and rise again. The facility groaned louder, metal shrieking as it began to collapse. Lyra stepped into the corridor, the red lights guiding her path outward. Behind her, fire blossomed, consuming the chamber, erasing the place of her torment. Ahead lay uncertainty, a galaxy that believed humanity weak, and an empire that would not forgive her defiance. She smiled faintly, her voice a whisper meant for no one but herself. Let them come. And with that, she walked into the burning light, unafraid. The corridors gave way to open sky. Lyra stepped through the fractured hull of the alien facility and emerged onto a platform that jutted high above a barren world. The atmosphere was thin, tinted with a pale violet haze, and stars burned stark and bright in the black beyond. She paused, filling her lungs with the sharp air. The facility behind her groaned, flames gnawing at its structure, smoke bleeding upward into the void. She had destroyed its master, but she knew the empire it belonged to would not crumble so easily. Below the surface stretched endless and scarred, a wasteland carved by mining and war. No sign of life stirred there, no water, no vegetation, just a husk of a planet drained to feed alien machines. The sight clawed at her chest. This was not simply a prison. It was a blueprint, what awaited Earth if the aliens succeeded. A flicker of movement in the sky pulled her eyes upward. A ship descended sleek and monstrous, its hull alive with symbols that pulsed like veins. Not a scout, not a transport. This was a warship, and it was hunting her. Lyra gripped the railing, steadying herself as the vessel lowered, its shadow consuming the platform. She had fought soldiers, scientists, commanders, but this is something greater, an extension of the Empire itself, a weapon meant not for experiments but annihilation. Her body still throbbed with wounds that refused to linger, her blood still sang with borrowed strength. Yet for the first time since her return she felt a shiver of doubt. The ship's belly split open and figures emerged. Not the frail scientists or the common soldiers she had faced before. These were elites, towering in armor engraved with sharp sigils, their movements precise, each step shaking the platform. They spread in formation, surrounding her in a circle. Their minds pressed into hers, unified, a wall of thought and command. Anomaly, they intoned together, voices folding into one. Surrender and you will be studied. Resist and you will be erased. Lyra wiped blood from her lip and straightened. The weight of their presence pressed on her, but beneath it she felt something else, a tremor of uncertainty, a gap in their flawless unity. They had expected victory to be simple. She was the unexpected variable, and they feared what she represented. She thought of Earth again, its skies unscarred, its oceans vast, its people flawed but alive with will. The aliens saw humanity as numbers, charts of weakness. But Lyra embodied the one truth they could not quantify. Resilience born of defiance. She could not give them surrender. Her voice was steady, quiet, but cutting through the silence. You killed me. You broke me. And still I stand. Do you really think I'm out now? They moved as one. Energy surged from their weapons, a storm of light and sound that engulfed her. The force knocked her to her knees, every nerve alight with fire. For an instant she thought they had succeeded, that her body would finally give way. But the power coursed through her, not ending her but fueling her, as though her veins had become conduits for their own destruction. She rose, trembling but upright, and their formation faltered. She felt their shock ripple, and she pressed into it. The strength within her swelled until her skin burned, her vision flooded with light. With a cry that tore from the depths of her chest, she unleashed it. Energy erupted outward, not from weapons or machines, but from her very being. The shockwave hurled the elites back, armor shattering, weapons crumbling into molten shards. The platform cracked beneath the force, fissures racing outward in jagged lines. When the light faded, only silence remained. The elites lay scattered, broken, their unity dissolved. Lyra stood at the center, shoulders heaving, eyes glowing brighter than ever. She had not just resisted. She had answered their ultimatum with proof that she could not be erased. But the warship still hung above, its engines rumbling, its cannons beginning to glow. She knew the fight was not finished. This was only the first blade of the storm. She had struck a wound into the Empire's pride, and it would not heal quietly. Her gaze swept the horizon where distant stars beckoned. Some were out there, others were fighting or waiting, unaware of the tide gathering against them. Humanity remained blind to the scale of what stalked it. And yet, if she had returned from death, if she had become something more than human, then perhaps she was not meant to hide. Perhaps she was meant to be seen. She turned from the burning facility, from the wreckage of her captors, and faced the waiting warship. Its weapons aimed downward, the glow of annihilation building in its core. Her body ached, her strength flickered, but her resolve hardened. She had not survived to escape quietly into the shadows. She had survived to deliver a message. Her lips parted, voice carried by the wind, though no one might hear it but the enemy above. Tell your empire, humanity does not kneel. Humanity endures. The cannons roared, light descending in a torrent toward her. Lyra closed her eyes, braced herself, and stepped forward into the blaze. The sky erupted, the world shook, and when the smoke cleared, the platform was empty. Somewhere beyond the ruin, beneath the shadow of that warship, or within its very heart, Lyra's story continued. Darkness swallowed her whole. For a moment she felt weightless, her body unmoored, as though the fire from the warship's cannons had burned her out of existence. Then sensation returned, the scrape of metal beneath her palms, the rasp of air in her throat, the rhythm of her own pulse hammering steady. She opened her eyes to dim light. The chamber around her was narrow, curved, its walls alive with faint veins of blue. She was inside the ship. The realization struck hard. She had not been obliterated, she had been taken. The warship had not sought to erase her from the galaxy, but to contain her, to dissect what they had failed to destroy before. A new cage, more intricate, more deliberate. She sat up, her body sluggish but already mending from the assault, and saw that restraints coiled around her wrists and ankles once more. These were different, flexing bands of liquid metal that shifted when she strained, tightening like living things. A voice drifted through the chamber, calm and resonant. You persist. This intrigues us. From the shadows, a figure emerged. It was no soldier, no commander, but something else entirely. Taller, broader, its form was draped in woven armor that glowed faintly with shifting patterns. Its eyes were not amber like the others, but a cold, crystalline white, opaque and depthless. Authority radiated from it, heavier than chains, heavier than gravity. Lyra's jaw clenched. Another master come to study me? The figure tilted its head, its voice sliding into her thoughts like oil. Master, no. Arbiter, I decide value. I decide whether the weak are given purpose or erased. And you, it leaned closer, studying her with inhuman patience. You are undecided. The words clawed at her, but she steadied herself. I've already been decided. You killed me. I came back. An accident, the Arbiter replied smoothly. An anomaly born of error. You mistake survival for significance. Lyra tested the restraints again. They tightened, biting into her skin, but her body refused to yield pain in the same way. Already she felt the energy in the walls, the heartbeat of the warship around her, and the strange resonance within her own blood that answered it. The ship itself pulsed like a living thing, and some part of her recognized its rhythm as if it were kin. The Arbiter seemed to sense her awareness. Its tone sharpened. Do you feel it? The vessel accepts you because you are tainted. You bleed with our design, carry our strands woven through your marrow. You are no longer entirely human. The words cut deeper than the restraints. She wanted to deny it, to cling to the name she had whispered to herself in the dark. But doubt slid beneath her defenses. The glow in her eyes, the way her wound sealed, the knowledge she should not have, all of it spoke of change. Still, she lifted her chin. I am human. That's why you fear me. The Arbiter's mouth curved, not quite a smile. Fear is not in our lexicon. Calculation is, and you are wasteful. You destroy what you touch. You kill without precision. You will burn yourself out before you can matter. Lyra breathed slowly, letting the words roll over her. A part of her trembled with truth. She had killed without pause, torn through them with rage and instinct. Was she a weapon, or merely destruction without purpose? The thought twisted inside her. But then she remembered the pods, the faces of the humans trapped, helpless, discarded as failures. She remembered her vow. Her voice steadied. Maybe I am wasteful, but I waste myself to save others. That's the difference between us. The Arbiter did not respond immediately. Its gaze lingered, measuring, as though recalculating. Finally it said, "We will test this claim. If you are truly more than an anomaly, prove it. Escape if you can. Survive if you can. And when you fail, your death will teach us more than your life ever could." The chamber shuddered. The restraints loosened suddenly, slithering back into the walls. The floor beneath her feet glowed with fresh lines of light, tracing pathways outward. Somewhere beyond, doors ground open, and the faint sound of moving figures filled the air. The Arbiter stepped back into shadow, its voice echoing as it vanished. "Begin." Lyra rose, flexing her hands. The room was larger now, its walls shifting to reveal openings that bled into darkness. Her body ached but thrummed with vitality, her senses alive to every tremor of the ship. They had released her not out of mercy, but out of confidence that she could be hunted, measured, catalogued once again. Her heart hammered. Part of her wanted to collapse, to let them win, to stop fighting an endless war that seemed unwinnable. But then she pictured Earth again, oceans and skies untouched by alien cruelty, and the thought rekindled her fire. She could not stop here, not when so much waited to be defended. A figure appeared in the doorway, a soldier armored, weapon raised. Lyra met its eyes, felt the pulse of intent in its mind, and moved before it fired. She struck with precision this time, not wild rage, dismantling rather than destroying, turning the weapon back against its wielder. The body fell, silent, and she stood taller. The test had begun. The Arbiter believed it would prove her insignificance. But Lyra understood something they never would. Every battle, every scar, every defiance was not wasted. It was meaning itself. She stepped into the dark corridor where more footsteps gathered, where the ship itself thrummed like a waiting predator. Her voice was low, almost a whisper, but it carried with her a vow carved into the silence. "I am still human, and I will show you what that means." And with that, she walked forward into the heart of the warship, where destiny waited sharpened like a blade.